Alrighty, so welcome everyone. So glad to have so many folks that joined in for our Western Cuyahoga Audubon member meeting and speaker series. It's Tuesday, November 4th. Can you believe it? November already. Hopefully everyone had a good Halloween. And next slide, please. So I'm Nancy Howell. I am one of the board members of Western Cuyahoga Audubon, and we'll be talking about a number of things. Next, please. So I welcomed folks, yay. We'll be chatting a little bit about the Christmas bird count, some other events and items of interest, volunteer opportunities. We always need volunteers to help us out. And as always, sign up for our e-newsletter. Comes out generally about once a week, just to be kept informed. And so we'll go to the next slide. Christmas bird count 2025. And I selected this photo. This was Penny O'Connor's photo from 2021. And you can see it was a fairly mild winter. We had no snow on the ground for our Christmas bird count. But this year's count will take place on Sunday, December 28th. And of course, our circle is called the Lakewood Circle, and it covers, as you can see, a good portion of the west side of Cleveland, Cleveland's west side suburbs, all the way into Lorain County and down to about the Strongsville border. We cover a good portion of the Lake Erie lakefront. So the folks who head on out all over, you do a tremendous job. So if you have questions, if you have concerns, if you certainly would like to be part of the Christmas bird count, even if you've been a Christmas bird counter for years, please let me know and I will mark it down so we can get things rolling on Sunday, December 28th. Next, please. Just wanted to mention that Sean Williams, Dr. Sean Williams from the Tri-C Eastern Campus is doing his ornithology course once again in the spring of 2026. And spring hardly begins in January, but that's their semester. So it starts January 12th through May 6th. As you can see, it's Mondays and Wednesdays from 9 in the morning, 9 to 11:45 in the morning. You do need to register by January 5th, and there will be weekly field trips, learning identification. But look at that, 150 or more species. They'll be doing some mist netting and bird banding, point counts, behaviors, ecology, and then lectures on avian evolution, and you can see all the other topics that they'll be covered. The next item, oh, by the way, several of our members at Western Cuyahoga have taken this ornithology course, and they say it's fabulous. So yes, it is in the Eastern Campus on the way on the east side, but it might be worth your while. I do want to mention that there is a survey that has come out, and we're going to show it on the next slide. We'll get to that in a minute. For a survey for people who are birders. And then I also noted that the Finch Research Network perhaps is giving us an idea that the finches will be coming from Canada. The poor conifer and some deciduous seed crops up in Canada have not, just didn't produce very well. So we may see the eruption of finches, some nuthatches, waxwings. If you have feeders out, this could be a good year for them. Watch your feeders, especially finch feeders, and remember, this could be for the Christmas count too. So I just wanted to let you know about the finch eruption possibility for this winter. By the way, those house sparrows in the photo are from the Tri-C Western campus. That was taken by the Laura Towell. That was during a Christmas bird count, and I don't remember which year that was from. Next, please. All right, we're going to keep this slide up just for a little bit because it has a QR code on it. But this is the information we received. Birders needed for surveys and sharing your perspectives. It is from Dr. Kirsten Vignetta, who is on the faculty at Utah State University. I looked her up. She's truly a real person and does study birds and information on social and environmental information with birding experiences. When you click on that, again, if you do the QR code and click on it, the survey is done through Grinnell College. So that's what the heading is. So it won't say Utah State University, it'll say Grinnell College. That's who's doing the survey, or that's who the survey is getting done through. As I mentioned, the questions are environmental, social, and about your birding experiences. So if you click on that QR code, there are 51 questions, but it does not take very long at all. They're all multiple choice, and you can hit other or rather not say. If you select other, there's a place for comments if you want to put comments in. So really, it does not take very long, and it's a very interesting survey. It'll be interesting to see what she's going to be pulling out of this information. So I hope everybody's got their phone. Click on that QR code, and it should pull it up right away. All righty, next, please. And of course, volunteer opportunities. We need people to write for our newsletter, photographers, for our bird walks, fundraising and friend raising assistance. Boy, sure would be nice if we could get together for a holiday, a Christmas, or not necessarily Christmas, but a winter gathering, just to have like a potluck somewhere. So if somebody would be really, really interested, or some buddies, it doesn't have to be one person, but if several people could get together and maybe help pull together a really fun, just a nice gathering during the winter when, we might be more stuck in the house than outdoors. And then, of course, we have special events that we're invited to. So usually I send them out in the newsletter. We send them out in our e-blasts. And next slide, please. And of course, keep informed through our newsletter and become a member if you can. Oh, the e-newsletter. You can see newsletter sign up HTML. Thank you. Next, please. All righty, Michelle Brocious, a board member and birdwalk coordinator. Michelle, take it away.
Hi, thank you, Nancy. Good evening, everyone. So I'm going to talk about our upcoming bird walks as well as how you can connect with us on social media. All right, we have the second Saturday bird walk coming up this Saturday, November 8th at 9 a.m. We meet at the Rocky River Nature Center between the upper and lower parking lots of the Nature Center, and then we take a few hours to walk the trails there. Bill Deininger, Dave Grasskemper, Ken Gober, and Al Rand are our leaders for the walk. That juvenile bald eagle there was seen at the second Saturday last month. So it was really close, just sitting there over the marsh, and hope we have more good birds like that this month as well. And I have a QR code for this that goes straight to our event, so you can add it to your calendar, RSVP, whatever you want to do. So go ahead and grab that if you like. And then also this month we have the Tremont Towpath Urban Bird Walk. That is on the fourth Saturday, and that'll be November 22nd this month at 9 a.m. We meet at the Towpath Public Parking Lot on Abbey Avenue, just west of the former Sokolowski's University Inn. And Nancy Howell and Al Rand are our leaders for that walk. And then finally, please follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, Blue Sky, Instagram, and YouTube. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. All of our online Zoom events are recorded and I put them on YouTube. So that way, if you can't attend during the event, you can at least catch it afterwards. And that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Michelle. Gorgeous photos too. Our next folks are Drina Nemes, who is the book discussion chair and a WCS board member. So Drina.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to season 6 of our book discussion series. Next slide, please. This year, our 3 books are Close to Home, which we just discussed October 21st, just 2 weeks ago tonight. Coming up next year, January 20th, is Wild America by Roger Torrey Peterson and James Fisher. And then in April, we'll have a follow-up to Wild America with Scott Weidensaul's Return to Wild America, in which he revisits the event of Wild America. Next slide, please. Well, again, Tuesday, January 20th is when we will meet. And this year, 2025, happens to be the 70th anniversary of Wild America. And here we have a portrait of Roger Torrey Peterson, who was one of the authors, and then also a plate of some of his artwork, which is extraordinary, just so beautiful. He's such an outstanding artist, also a conservationist, educator, and just a great naturalist. Next slide, please. Well, the book is also by James Fisher, and it turns out that he was an Englishman, and he had about the same type of, let's say, popularity as Roger Torrey Peterson did, because he was a writer, and as well as he did a series of radio broadcasts, and then he got into television too, and he promoted nature. The 2 men met in 1950, and they were at an ornithological conference in Sweden, and they had gone on a field trip, and that's where they met. And Roger was a little bit nervous about meeting him, because part of this meeting was to engage in a business transaction and he was promoting his book of A Field Guide to European Birds. Well, James Fisher was happy about this, and they got the publishing going, but also significantly more for us, they became really good friends. Next slide, please. Well, their tour was a good part of North America, not the whole thing, but they started over in Newfoundland here, and they made their way pretty much around the perimeter, mostly because James Fisher was an expert on seabirds, and so Roger wanted an opportunity for him to see as many seabirds as possible. So they made their way down the East Coast. They did get into Mexico, and then up into Colorado, to the West Coast, Monterey, to the Pacific Northwest, and then even up to the far northwest of Alaska and the Pribilof Islands. 30,000 miles, they did it. Roger Torrey Peterson had planned the whole thing, and if you can imagine planning this in 1952 and 53, their trip was in 53, but imagine no internet, very limited communication, compared to what we have today. It took them a year and a half to plan it. So that was their route. Next slide, please. This YouTube video is a wonderful resource. It's entitled The Foremost Naturalist in the World, and it is a less than 10-minute overview of Roger Torrey Peterson and shows his career. Next slide, please. Well, completely unrelated, but I wanted to show, and perhaps some of you are familiar with the Allen Bird Cam from South Africa. It's live. It's just a magnificent way to see birds around the world every single day. It's live and it's wonderful. You'll see birds there that you would never see in Cuyahoga County. Thank you all.
Thanks so much, Drina. Appreciate it. I think you'll appreciate tonight's lecture too. It kind of is a riff on a big year. Amanda Sabrowski works the polls, so she's unable to be here this evening, but she is our bird-friendly coffee coordinator. And do we have the slide for the bird-friendly coffee? Oh, let's go to the next slide. Nope, I don't know where the bird-friendly coffee slide went. But we are working with birds and beans because everybody knows tariffs. Coffee prices have gone up no matter where you are, who you are, what you are. So birds and beans coffee, their prices have gone up as well. We are working with birds and beans to get more information and find out exactly what roasts and grinds they're going to still carry, what size packaging. And stay tuned. We will let everybody know. But by the way, we've pulled the Coffee Club tab off of our website temporarily, just until we communicate with Birds and Beans, so that we have the correct information on the website. And then, once we get that up, then we will send out information to everyone, again, our members, our guests, the folks who are diligent in getting the coffee 4 times a year. So we're working on that. Thanks. Next, please. Marianne Ramito, Climate Watch Coordinator. Marianne.
Hi there, everybody. I just want to let you know that, well, I'm Marianne Ramito and I'm the coordinator for Northeast Ohio for the Climate Watch project that Audubon is sponsoring, conducting. And I'm hoping that since we've got some new names here, that maybe somebody might be interested in helping out. If you're from the local area here in Northeast Ohio, on the next slide, well, hang on a second. The next slide will give you my contact information, so get ready to take a picture of that if you want to contact me and join. But what the Climate Watch is it's a project that is being sponsored by Audubon, and they are monitoring the birds that are in all of the areas all over the lower 48 that are being, and they're trying to decide, trying to show you the impact of how climate change is affecting the birds and their movements, how they're migrating north or south or whatever they're doing. And they do that by each of us who were out there monitoring. We conduct 5-minute point counts at 12 different spots, and then we send the data to Audubon. And the Climate Watch for the winter is from January 15th through February 15th. So you can go to the next slide, please. And this is my contact information in the middle. So if you want to take a picture of it and give me a call or an email, that would be great. But if you want to see how the Climate Watch surveys are conducted, there's a link here that shows you how Audubon conducts their surveys. You might want to start about 15 minutes into the program, because we've got this, I did this program a couple of years ago for WCAS, and the okay, I did it, and I've lost my train of thought. I did this for WCS a few years ago, and my part starts about maybe 17 minutes into the program, so you might want to fast forward through all the stuff to get to it. But it's a fun project, and we will have a big day on Saturday, January 17th, so that if everybody wants to go out and do their little counts after you've been assigned a square, we can all get it done at the same time, providing the weather is nice. If the weather is awful, then don't try to do it that day and wait for a better day. You've got until February the 15th, excuse me, February the 15th to finish your counts. And if you got any questions, put some questions in the chat and I'll try to answer them. Thanks.
Thank you, Marianne. And I understand that there's only 5 species of birds that we really have to keep
Yeah.
track of at these 12 points. And
Yes.
by the
Yes.
way, you choose the points in your square or the section that Marianne assigns to you. And she tries to assign
Yeah, I think Nancy got frozen there. I try to assign to someplace that's nearby to
5
you.
minutes at each point. And let's see, refresh my memory. I know Eastern Bluebird,
Eastern
Eastern
bluebird,
Towhee.
yeah. The goldfinch, the two nuthatches, the bluebird, and the towhee.
Right. Yep. So again, it's really quite fun. So we do a winter climate watch, as Marianne is showing here, and then there's one in May to June, which is the summer. We call it the summer climate watch. Thank you, Marianne.
Mm-hmm.
Next. Hey, there's the coffee thing. Right. I think we're just going to skip over that. Yay! All righty. Just wanted to touch base with our December speaker program. And it's a local photographer, Hal Mitchell-Tree. View Nature's boundless beauty through the eyes of a photographer. I think you'll really enjoy his program. It'll be interactive. He'll be asking questions. And again, this is a Zoom only, no in-person meeting. And that's Tuesday, December 2nd at 7 o'clock. Next slide, please. Oh, I'm so excited about this presentation tonight. Mr. Harris actually contacted us who writing this book, RaptorQuest, Chasing America's Raptors. And I'm like, oh, you know what? This really kind of follows Drina's book discussions because it's his big year finding raptors. So I think it's going to be really worthwhile, and he's a wonderful photographer. Next slide, please. So Scott Harris and his wife Randy retired to South Carolina from California in March of 2020, which Scott will tell you was one of his best decisions they've made in their 44 years of marriage. Their children and grandson are also in South Carolina. It was also when he first started birding, a hobby he never imagined himself participating in, but now can't imagine living without. While in California, Scott had a syndicated newspaper column and 2 weekly radio shows. Scott sat on dozens of boards over the years, including Boys and Girls Club, United Way, the Sheriff's Foundation, Pepperdine University, Moore Park College, and California State University, Northridge. His interests and hobbies include the largest collection of John Steinbeck's Travels with Charlie in the world, playing harmonica in a blues band for 5 years, and writing. He has written almost 50 books in the past 6 years, though RaptorQuest is his first entree into the world of birding. So really, let's give a nice welcome to Scott Harris, author, photographer, and storyteller.
All right. Do we have the cover of the book up?
We do.
And I take it since you answered, you can hear me. So that's 2 good signs. We're off on a roll. So thank you very, very much for having me here. And thank you to each of you for having me into your home. I never take that for granted. I'm excited about sharing this adventure, and it really was an adventure. And I'll talk about some of the birding and some of my personal experiences and the people who helped me along the way, of which there were quite a few. And while the book itself and the photos are a big part of the journey I took, it really was the people that were the highlight. And so I felt absolutely blessed. As mentioned in the introduction, my wife and I retired to South Carolina about 5.5 years ago from Southern California. When we moved here, I was not a birder, which was my bad, as it turns out. I'd been a hiker, and I did a 6-month camping trip, and I spent a lot of time outdoors, but I didn't pay more attention to birds than I did to anything else that I saw. And the disappointment in that is my wife and I have been fortunate enough to travel to all 50 states at least a couple of times and probably 40 countries. I can only imagine the number of birds that I saw on those trips and didn't notice, or the birds I could have seen had I paid attention and done any planning. But I'm trying to make up for that, and so I am out there looking for birds and having a blast doing it. I do enjoy writing. I've now published, I think it's 55 or 56 books, and the book RaptorQuest was my first into the world of birding. But not being an ornithologist or a scientist, I wasn't sure what I was going to write about. So I'm sitting in my office right now. Right outside my office, I can look through a screen porch, and on the other side of the screen porch is the lake that we live on. And my son and I were sitting out there one day on the screen porch, just having a cigar and talking. And I mentioned that I wanted to start to learn what the birds were that were out there and find out what they were. But it was a casual statement. I hadn't become a birder. I didn't even know the term birder. And then a couple of days later, an Amazon box showed up, and in that box was a David Sibley guide to the birds of the eastern U.S. and Ken Kaufman's Kingbird Highway. And so my son had ordered those for me and thought that might be a fun start on this journey, and it turns out that it is. And I have thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought that that doing a big year would be kind of fun, and that was based on this movie, which I imagine a lot of you have seen. It came out in 2011, called The Big Year. We watched it when it came out. We watched it as a family, not because of an interest in birds, but we like all three of the actors, so that was kind of fun. And actually, the Jack Black character in the movie here is Greg Miller in real life from out your guys' way. And Greg and I become friends. He stayed at the house, and we spent some time together, which is terrific. And so we got together again as a family and watched the movie. And at the end of the movie, I said to my wife, "Man, I think doing a big year would be awesome. That's probably something I want to do next year." And she quickly reminded me of the Owen Wilson character and what happened in his life when he took off a year and went birding. And if you don't remember, he wound up getting divorced. So I took that as a solid hint to not do a full big year. But in the short time I had been birding, I had quickly determined that I much preferred raptors over other birds. And nothing wrong with any of the other birds, the warblers and the songbirds and the shorebirds and the woodpeckers and the hummingbirds. Everybody's got their favorites, and I think that's fantastic. But for me, the raptors stand out above and beyond all the others, and I'll explain why as the evening goes on. But I thought, well, maybe I could do a big year on raptors. Let me find out what's involved in that. So I started doing some research, and I discovered that there are generally accepted that there are 53 raptors in the lower 48 states, 31 diurnals. I recognize that a couple of owls are also diurnals, but forgive this, I had to somehow put them in boxes. So 31 diurnals, 19 owls, and 3 vultures. I share with you that there is some controversy about this list. I, for one, would not include vultures if I was going to do this over again. The red and the black and the condor, not because they're not important. They might be the most important of all the birds for the disease reduction that they do and the cleanup crew that they provide. But nonetheless, I do not think that they are raptors. And it's interesting because there is no generally accepted definition of raptor or bird of prey. For hummingbirds, science has agreed. For corvids, science has agreed. For woodpeckers, science has agreed. But for raptors, it has not. Every time somebody comes up with a definition, whether it's an individual or organization, there is a bird that fits inside that definition that people don't want to call a raptor, like, say, a loggerhead shrike. And then there are birds that the definition would exclude. And so it becomes a bit of a challenge. And I'm reminded back in 1964, Supreme Court Justice Potter Stewart was asked if he could define pornography. And he famously answered that he couldn't define it, but he knew it when he saw it. And I think that's kind of where we are with raptors. You know it when you see a raptor. There is controversy among some of the others that maybe should or should not be raptors. A Harlan's hawk, for example, which is currently a subspecies of a red-tailed hawk, though it doesn't have a red tail. It's a completely brown raptor, but it is a subspecies of a red-tailed hawk. It has been lumped and split 3 times in its lifetime, and it may very well be split out again. There is a push for that to happen. We'll see what happens with that. There are some birds, like say a hook-billed kite, which crosses over down in the southeastern corner of Texas. It crosses the Mexican border, and occasionally it will nest here. They're not seen terribly often, but it's not a giant rarity when they do show up. But I'm not sure if that's an American bird. And then there are some owls, some winter owls, a northern hawk and the snowy and the great gray that come down from the boreal forest. And those are really Canadian birds, but this is America, so we claim them. So in the end, it seems like all the lists I check and all the people I spoke to, 53 was the number. That's what I went with. That's what I targeted for the year. I will share with you the distribution of the raptors. I did find all 53, by the way, but it did not take me 12 months. It took me 17 months, I was going to say in large part, but really due entirely to my ignorance. I did not realize how hard it would be, how difficult it would be to get all of the winter owls. So I did not allow enough time that first winter, so I had to wait till winter cycled through a second time. Hence the 17 months. Of the 53 total in the lower 48, and by the way, if you're wondering about Alaska and Hawaii, there are no raptors that are endemic to Alaska that you can't find in the lower 48 states. You do obviously get some migrants and vagrants and rarities coming through. It didn't happen during that 17 months in Alaska, but you do get those. Hawaii has 3 raptors. It has the barn owl, the same barn owl that we have out here. No difference. It has a short-eared owl, which is a subspecies of our continental short-eared owl. There is also a movement afoot to have that broken out as its own species. It is a strict diurnal bird. You can find it absolutely in the middle of the day. I've done it myself. It has a different vocalization, and there are people that have submitted papers hoping to get that split out. Who knows if it'll happen. The one bird that is currently a pure endemic to Hawaii is only found on the Big Island of Hawaii. It is a hawk, and it is brilliantly named Hawaiian hawk. I can only imagine how much time was invested in naming a hawk found only in Hawaii, the Hawaiian hawk, but that is what they did. But of the 53 and the 48 states, 20 of them have been found in all 48 states. Now, I will tell you, if you're curious, the statistics that I will quote to you this evening all come from eBird. Most of us are familiar with eBird. Most of us use eBird. But even if you don't, it's a good base for information. I took a 5-year block, 2017 to 2022. That's what I used for my research. And during that 5-year period, all 48 states got to see each of these 20 different birds. Now, obviously, some more often than others, some seasonally, some year-round. But nonetheless, you could have been in one state and seen 20 of the birds at a minimum. 2 of the birds were found in 47 of the 48 states. They both skipped Louisiana. I don't know if they don't speak French, if they didn't like Cajun food. I don't know what the deal was. But the 2 are the northern goshawk, now known as the American goshawk. It was the northern goshawk when I did this. And the second one is the northern saw-whet owl. Now, I saw that you have Scott Weidensaw, one of his books, up for your book club coming up, which is very cool. And I will tell you a story that Scott shared with me. I have a new book coming out called Why We Love Birds, and Scott is a guest in that. I also have a podcast. I'll tell you a little bit about it at the end, but Scott has been a guest on my podcast as well. But he tells a story about the northern saw-whet owl, and if you don't know, Scott has studied them for 30 years. That, along with migration, are his passions. And he said that John James Audubon claimed that he spotted the northern saw-whet owl in Louisiana. He named it the Acadian owl and also claims to have painted it while he was in Louisiana. Scott has doubts about that. He says that Audubon was, what I'm going to quote him, what you might call an unreliable narrator, to put it mildly. So I don't know whether northern saw-whet owls have been seen in Louisiana before or if Mr. Audubon saw them, but they hadn't been seen between 17 and 22. One owl has skipped 2 states, has seen 46 of the 48. The snowy owl has not been spotted in Arizona or New Mexico. It is, of course, seen all the time in Alaska and is also occasionally spotted in Hawaii. The last time was 2011, and unfortunately it took up residence at an airport, and so it was shotgunned to death because they were afraid it might cause an accident with one of the planes. So there has not been a snowy owl in Hawaii in the last 14 years. 5 of the owls, or 5 of the raptors, are typically found in 3 states or fewer: the Bat Falcon, the ferruginous pygmy owl, the whiskered screech owl, the aforementioned hook-billed kite, and the white-tailed hawk. And all of those are found in 3 states or fewer, and all of them are most commonly found in the state of Texas. And you have a good shot at seeing those if you go at the right time and go to the right places. You can find them in other states. Obviously, the states surrounding Texas are the most common, but Texas itself is the best source for that. People ask about my trip, so I will share with you what I did on that trip. I did a variety of cross-country trips, 7 of them, as a matter of fact. All of them were in a Ford F-150 that I bought for this trip. And I was very fortunate in that I did all of these trips by myself, the cross-country driving trips. I have a loving and adoring and beautiful and charming wife, but the idea of driving thousands of miles to go look for birds does not appeal to her at all. So I did these by myself, and I was blessed, with one exception that I'm going to share with you. I never got a ticket. I never got a flat tire. I never broke down. It was spectacular. I was really, really fortunate on this trip. I did 13 long round trip flights. Those 13 flights were a total of 50 legs because I was going to so many small places like Harlingen, Texas, or Wise River, Montana. So sometimes coming out of Greenville, South Carolina, it would take me 3 or 4 legs to get somewhere before I could get a car and get moving. Now, those 50 flights, people have a lot of complaints about the airlines, and I understand that, and it makes sense. But I will tell you that all 50 of my flights took off on time, and 49 of the 50 landed on time. And I didn't often check luggage, but when I did, it was never lost once. The one time that didn't go the way I had hoped it would, I left Houston. It was my 4th trip to Texas. I had driven there twice and then flown there once previous and then flown on this trip, all to look for the hook-billed kite. I got into Houston. There was about an 11 o'clock flight, 10:30 flight out of Houston down to Harlingen, Texas. 45-minute flight, easy flight. We fly the 45 minutes, and suddenly the pilot comes on the air and he says, "Hey, got some bad news. There's a lot of fog there over Harlingen, and we're not sure if we can land. But we've got about 15 minutes worth of fuel left, so we're going to circle around for a little bit and see if we can't sneak in under that fog. And if not, we'll turn around and head back to Texas." Now, I mentioned before, I'm not an ornithologist or a scientist. I'm also not a mathematician. But if it took 45 minutes worth of fuel to get there, I figured it was going to take 45 minutes worth of fuel to get back. Somebody must have mentioned that to the pilot, because about 3-4 minutes later, he came back on and said, "I'm sorry, what I meant to say was we have 15 minutes worth of fuel to play with. We have plenty of fuel to make it back to Houston," which is what we did. And then they put us back on the first flight out in the morning, and I got that hook-billed kite, so that was pretty cool. On the road for 25 weeks, visited 34 states total, and traveled well over 100,000 miles over the course of the 17 months. These are the states that I drove to the most often. These are the states that I flew to. These are all of the states that I visited. And this was the one little mishap I had with the car. I had flown into Kalispell, Montana, to find a snowy owl. It had been seen for 3 consecutive days at a little private airport called the Flathead Lake Sky Ranch Airport outside of Kalispell. So I jumped on a plane to go see it, got there, rented a car, landed Monday morning, went out Monday afternoon and didn't find it. Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, I went out each dawn and each dusk and did not find it. There were no more reports of it on eBird, so I was a little disappointed, but that's the way it goes. I had a flight to catch out Friday night to go home. Friday morning, I just didn't want to go back to that airport. So I knew there was a great place to go look for raptors that was 2 hours away. And so I got up well before dawn on Friday morning. I drove to this location, got there right as the sun was coming up, and I spent 2 hours there, 120 minutes. Now, you guys know that 2 hours is 120 minutes, but the reason I point it out is in that 120 minutes I was there, I saw 119 different raptors, not counting the vultures. And it was magnificent. I mean, there were 15 great horned owls. It was just an amazing time. And so when I was done and it was time to drive back, I was going to take one more look Friday afternoon and then catch my plane Friday night. I typed in Manning Road, which is the main dirt road alongside this small private airport, and it came up and said 2 hours and 18 minutes away. That was perfect. I hit go, and then I quit paying attention. It was in the GPS. I turned on my books on tape and I started listening to my book. And it would say, make a left here, make a right in 17 miles, whatever. Finally, I look up, I'm in traffic, and what do I see but this sign that says, "Welcome to Canada." Now, I did not want to go to Canada. Canada was due north of where I had started. I needed to go due west. And I thought, well, this is going to be a problem. There was nowhere for me to turn around, nor did I have a passport because I hadn't intended to cross the international boundary. Now, you may have been told over your lifetime that Canadians are nice and friendly people and a welcoming country. I did not find that to be true. I pulled up to the border crossing. I explained what had happened. This guy could have cared less. He made me pull over, and they spent 3.5 hours tearing my rental car apart, looking for, I don't know what, drugs, guns, whatever. And at the end, they go, "Okay, fine, you're clean. Put your car back together." And keep in mind, all I needed to do was make a 100-yard U-turn. He said, just, make your U-turn, go back on the U.S. side, tell them what happened, they'll let you right in. And they share a building, by the way. There's a wall in between going down the middle, separating the offices, but they actually share a building at this border crossing. I go on the U.S. side. They were no happier to have me back than Canada had been welcoming. And so they spent 2.5 hours tearing my car apart. So I was 6 hours to go 100 yards. When I finally got back into the States, I raced back toward Kalispell and toward the airport. And I got there about 20 minutes before dusk. And now you guys are all birders, so you know this. If you're looking for a bird and you're in the area where an unusual bird has been spotted and you see somebody on the side of the road, either they've broken down or they're on a good bird. And sure enough, on Manning Road, there was another car on the side of the road, the first one I'd seen on the side of the road the whole week. So I pulled it behind him and I walked up and I knocked on the window, and the gentleman rolled down his window and I said, "Man, is there any chance at all that you're on the snowy owl?" And he turned and he pointed, and 50 feet away, sitting on a shed in a guy's backyard alongside Manning Road, was this snowy owl. Now, I think this is a spectacular photograph. Do not misunderstand, because I'm going to say that again in this presentation. Not because I took it. Anybody with a camera could have taken this photo of this snowy owl had they been 50 feet away and staring at it. And the owl sat there for a few minutes. I got dozens of pictures. I happen to like this one. I love the yellow eyes and the black and the whole thing. But nonetheless, he got me on the snowy. It was magnificent. It made the whole week worth it. Got to see it fly away. And just a beautiful, beautiful bird. And was an absolute thrill for me. Plus, I made my flight and got back in time. This next picture is another one that I like, and I'll tell you why. This is a ferruginous pygmy owl, not an easy bird to get. They're not that common in the U.S. I've seen a lot of them in Central America, but not in the U.S. But you can find them at King Ranch in Texas. Forgive me. If you don't know King Ranch, it is a massive and old ranch. It's old by U.S. standards. It's over 200 years old, and it is huge. It is 825,000 acres. And to give you an idea on size, the entire state of Rhode Island is 777,000 acres. It's bigger than the state of Rhode Island. And it is known for a number of things: corporate retreats, hunting, cattle ranching, and birding. They have over 300 birds on, I guess you could call it a yard list, but they do birding tours. And the highlight of that is when they search out ferruginous pygmy owls. So I signed up for that. You get there at dawn. You can't go on your own. You have to take a tour. There was a tour guide in a white van, and then there was another couple besides me. It was a young man about 20 years old and his mom, both birders, and they came down to see the ferruginous as well. So we climb in the van, everybody hits it off, we're having a good morning. About an hour into the trip, we hear a ferruginous. It's a definite hear. But I don't like herd only. I really didn't want to count that. But frankly, I wrote it down just in case. About an hour later, so 2 hours into the trip, we see a ferruginous dart by. A decent look at it, but not a great look. Never saw it land. Didn't see it take off, just saw it fly by. And then another hour, so 3 hours into the trip, the guide, his name is Tom Langshield, says, it's time to stop for brunch. Let's pull over. So we do. Out in the middle of this prairie, there's a picnic table, obviously their normal stop for brunch spot. And as we're unpacking the van with whatever was packed up for the eats, I look up and about 20 or 25 feet away from the picnic table is this ferruginous pygmy owl, just sitting there, just absolutely sitting there as you see him now. And it stayed there the entire time we had breakfast. We were probably there a half hour, and we were talking and laughing. It preened itself. It actually dozed off once. It did not seem irritated or upset at all. It didn't fly away. And when we packed up breakfast and packed up the van and drove away, it was still there. It was pretty cool. And the guy's name, the young man's name, was Frank Fabro. He was a ornithology student at the University UC Davis in California, and his name will come up again because he made a kind offer to me and I accepted it. Later that same day, I got a white-tailed hawk. I actually got a number of them, probably a dozen of them over the course of the day. There's quite a few of them in that area of Texas. Absolutely beautiful bird. And down there in Texas, they are nicknamed the firehawk, which I did not know. And that name results from, you get, of course, these grassland or prairie fires racing through parts of Texas and just chewing up the low grasses. And obviously sending all of the animals scurrying to try to avoid the fire. The insects take to the air, especially the grasshoppers. The white-tailed hawks have figured this out, so they follow the trailing edge of the fire and pick off the insects as they break through the smoke. And apparently, I have not, but the guide, for example, was telling me he's seen up to a dozen white-tailed hawks trailing a fire. And so the locals call them firehawks. And you can only imagine the poor grasshopper, right? There's a fire racing toward them. They're smart enough to fly, and they break through the smoke, and they think they're going to be free. And that's their last thought before they become breakfast for a white-tailed hawk. The young man I mentioned, Frank Fabro, I was at King Ranch in March of that year, and he had said, hey, if you're still looking for a spotted owl come summertime, give me a call, and I will try to put you on one. And he explained that the year before, the summer before, his internship through college had been with a timber company, and his job had been to find spotted owl nests and mark those off and report back to the timber company. And they would then do a 1/4 mile square around that nest and not cut the timber down and give the owl a chance to take the nest and have the fledges hatch healthily. So he thought he could help me find something, even though that wasn't going to be his internship. So I did call him, great guy. He agreed to help me out. He drove 3 hours to get there. And because we were meeting at 5 in the morning, he drove out the night before and spent the night in his car. I get there, it's before dark. And so we're standing there, and he said, okay, let's just start hiking up this trail. It's not really a trail unless maybe you're a rabbit. And I'm not a rabbit. And so it was a difficult hike, but we hiked for about an hour. And just as we get toward the end of where he thinks we should be, the sun starts to come up a little bit, which is great. And he said, okay, I think if we head off here to the right and go maybe a 1/2 mile, we'll come on to a spotted owl nest. Now I'm looking to my right. It is a wall of flora. I mean, it is trees and bushes and grasses. I don't see how we're possibly going to get through it. And he reaches down to his right thigh and unstraps 2 machetes that he'd been carrying for the 1 hour hike. Handed me one, kept one for himself. He said, let's start cutting our way through. And we did. We spent some time cutting our way through this forest. It seemed like we went 10 or 15 miles. Frank tells me we went a 1/2 mile. And suddenly we come out into this opening. If any of you are into horses, my daughter, when we lived in California, we had a 60-foot round arena in the backyard. And this is what it looked like. It looked like it was a 60-foot round, like it had been cut for that. And right in the center of it, there was only one tree left. And sitting on the tree was this spotted owl, just like the ferruginous, just sitting there. So Frank and I, there were 2 stumps on the edge of the round, and we sat down on those stumps. So we were probably about 30 feet from the spotted owl. We opened up our breakfast and we're talking, and the owl just couldn't have been happier. It stared at us, as you can see here, and it preened, it napped. It also dropped down and caught a mouse while we were there. We got to see it do that and came back up and swallowed it. It was just spectacular. And for the entire hour we were there, it never looked agitated. And you can see this is just a gorgeous picture. Again, not because I took it, just because of what it represents to find this owl out in the middle of nowhere. Such a beautiful, beautiful bird. And we were just thrilled about it and got to spend a lot of time with it and watch it and study it. So then we hiked back out to where the trail was. And right where we get to where this little tiny trail was, we come across this, which is a fledgling. It's a spotted owl fledge. And Frank believes that that fledge actually fledged the nest while we were staring at the adult. So within that, we were gone probably a total of 2 hours, 2.5 hours on that part of the hike. He thinks that's when that fledge came out. We found this one and another one. And while we were watching them, an adult flew in. And again, I'm basing this on what Frank said, but he believes that the adult that we had been watching while we had breakfast is the same adult that flew back. So we got to see an adult and we got to see 2 fledges, and it was just amazing. It was just an absolute blessing. Swallowtail kite, not terribly difficult to find. Beautiful birds. They remind me of Fred Astaire of birds, with the black and the white. Looks like they're wearing a tuxedo. I mentioned we live on a lake. One afternoon, my son and I, before I actually started on the book, we took the pontoon boat out in the middle of the lake. Middle of the day, middle of the week, middle of the lake. Shut the boat down, lied down on the 2 bench seats, lit up a couple of cigars, and just started talking the way fathers and sons do if the father's really fortunate. And while we were lying there and talking, a pair of swallowtail kites flew overhead. I grabbed a camera and managed to snap this. I was not a photographer at the time. I took that up when I started birding, but I managed to get this shot. And from the lake, I called a couple of friends I'd made in the local birding community and told them what I'd seen. They told me I was wrong because there hadn't been a swallowtail kite seen over the lake ever. And so I took a picture and texted it to them, and they both raced over to the house and met me. And we picked them up in the boat, took them back out on the lake. We were able to find and get them both on the swallowtail kite. While that trip was going on, while we were doing all that, that's when my son and I decided for certain I was going to write this book, and where we came up with the name RaptorQuest, which is why the swallowtail kite is the first bird in the book, RaptorQuest. This one is from about 75 miles north of the house. That is on their migration route. They come through every year, at least the 5 years I've been birding. And generally, it seems like it's the same flock, about 25 swallowtails, about 15 Mississippis. They come to the same field every year. The farmer there has been convinced by the local birding community and very generously agreed to not till his farm until after they go through migration. So the field is just filled with grasshoppers and insects, and the kites just have an absolute blast. So it is a blessing to be able to see. Among the people who helped me, this gentleman helped me quite a bit. His name is Scott Rashid. He is a he is a small owl expert in Rocky Mountain National Park. He has been studying them for 27 years consecutively. And that is his passion and his vocation and his avocation. That's his everything, these 4 small owls. I was introduced to Scott. I flew out there and spent some time with him. I've gone out every year since. He starts a banding station on September 15th, runs it for 6 weeks every year. This year it got shut down after about a week because of the government shutdown, but that's the first year that he hasn't done it for the full 6 weeks. So I went out and spent a week with him, and he was kind enough to get me on the 4 small owls that either year-round or at least part-time call Rocky Mountain National Park home. This boreal owl, which is absolutely stunning, northern pygmy owl, a northern sawwood owl, and the 4th one, which I did not get a decent photograph of, is the flammulated owl. But I did get to get all 4 of those owls into 1 week, and it's just fantastic. When I was out there in September, my wife and I were there opening night, September 15th. There's about 5 people there helping them at the banding station. And that night we were able to trap both a northern saw-whet and a boreal, so I got to hold both of those. And if you've never had a chance to hold a small owl, like a pygmy or a saw-whet or a boreal, if you ever do get that opportunity, you want to take advantage of it. It is an amazing thing. And what's truly remarkable to me anyway is how tiny they are. For those of you that remember back to your childhood, they used to have those cans of orange juice concentrate. It'd come in a cardboard can, you'd open it up and pour it into a pitcher and add some water, and you'd magically have orange juice. It's about the size of a Coke can. And that's actually what he uses when we catch these birds. He takes the bird, collapses the wing, pushes them into one of those orange concentrate containers, and that's how he weighs them and whatnot. They are really tiny birds, but they are magnificent to see. Cooper's hawk, I love this bird. I just think it's a magnificent bird. This particular one is at a place called Commissary Ridge, which is in Wyoming, and they have both a banding station and a hawk watch there. And I was fortunate enough to be invited to visit both. I was given directions, so I drove from South Carolina to Wyoming and parked the RV at an RV place and unhooked the Jeep and drove to the directions that they told me would get me to the banding station and the hawk watch on the top of a mountain. Now, the downside was there was no GPS there, no Wi-Fi, no way to communicate once you got close. And they worked 6.5 days a week. They had no water, no electricity, no nothing. They just camped for 6.5 days a week. And then on Wednesday afternoon, they would shut down, go into town, they would shower and buy their food and whatever they were going to do. I got there on Thursday morning. So I knew if I didn't find them, I wasn't going to be able to, wait. It's not like I'd gotten there on Tuesday or Wednesday. So I was getting a little bit nervous, and I started to extend my drive a little bit, and I'm looking for this dirt road that they had described to me, and I'm not finding anything even close. And finally, I extend my drive out, and I find this beautiful wooden gate, big, huge timber gate. So I open the gate up and let myself in and close the gate behind me and drive maybe a mile down this dirt road. And at the end of this dirt road of what was obviously a cattle ranch, there was a beautiful, beautiful all timber house, about 7,000 square feet, I would guess. Just massive and gorgeous and well kept. I park the truck, I get out, I go, I knock on the door, and you got to keep in mind these doors. There's two front doors. They're both 10 feet tall. They're both about 4 feet wide. So it is a massive, massive opening to get inside this house. I knock on the door, and one of the doors slowly opens. And standing in front of me is a woman who is somewhere between 50 and 150 years old. She does not weigh 100 pounds. She is not 5 feet tall. And she looks to me like she's made out of leather. And she looks up at me and she smiles, and she's got a smile that would light up this entire valley. She was just so pleasant. And she said, "I'll bet you're looking for the birds." And I said, "I am." And she said, "Yep, about every third or fourth week, somebody comes up here looking. They don't give very good directions." And she said, "So here's the deal. If you will come into the house and have a glass of milk and have a sandwich, and I'll make you the sandwich, and if you share a couple stories with me, then I will give you the directions to the birding." And so that's what we did. She poured me a glass of milk. She made me a sandwich. I told her some stories. And at the end of about an hour, she gave me the directions, which were perfect, and sent me up to the hawk watch. And when I got to the hawk watch, they had just captured this Cooper's hawk and banded it. And so they let me release it. And when I did, it didn't fly very far off. So I was able to grab a camera and get a picture of it. So between meeting that woman and getting to hold a Cooper's hawk and the whole thing, it was just a great, great day. This is another shot of a Cooper's hawk. This one's down in Arizona. Again, when people ask, why raptors, the eyes are a huge part of it. I look at this orange eye with the black center, and I am just drawn in. It's like looking at a large marine mammal. I'm just fascinated by it. And so this is a gorgeous bird. And for me, the eyes have it. Red-tailed hawk, one of our most common raptors. You guys certainly have your fair share of them in Ohio. I will share two stories, one of which you probably know, one of which you may or may not know. The one that you probably know is that every time you see a bald eagle in a movie or in an ad or in a TV show and it lets out that fierce war cry, that is not a bald eagle, that is a red-tailed hawk. And red-tailed hawks might let out the coolest sound in all of nature. When they let out that war cry, it is just amazing. I don't know if you know this, but in 1951, there was a movie called The Distant Drum. And part of that movie, there was a scene in that movie where a guy gets thrown off of a skyscraper, of a tall building, and he's falling backwards with his back to the sidewalk and his arms and legs are flailing. You've seen that scene a million times in different movies. And he's screaming on the way down. And that scream is considered a perfect scream. It's called the Wilhelm scream, and it is still used today. That sound gets passed around among sound engineers. I have not confirmed this, but I've been told that there is a similar thing with the red-tailed hawk, that there is a single perfect red-tailed hawk cry that is passed around among sound engineers. I'm trying to track that down, but I haven't been able to do it yet. Now, the story you may not know why the population of red-tailed hawks exploded dates back to 1952 when we elected, interesting, we're on election night, when we elected Dwight D. Eisenhower president. One of the things that President Eisenhower wanted to do was to build an interstate highway system. So he initiated that and got it started. It was completed long after his death. It was completed in 1994, but he's the one who started the program. And he did it for two reasons. Number one, we were having a mass migration of people from the East Coast to the West Coast after World War II. He wanted to make that safer and easier and faster. And number two, we wanted to have some straight concrete highway. In case we went to war with Russia, we would have a place to land bombers and fighter planes. The unintended consequence of that effort was that we created perfect red-tailed hawk habitat. We cut through forests around the country and we leveled the ground around it, and we keep that area in a lot of these parts of the country mowed. And so what you've done is you created perfect habitat for things red-tailed hawks like to eat. So you've got small mammals and reptiles and small birds and all kinds of great things for a red-tailed hawk to eat. The only thing that was missing were perches. So we put those up every 150 yards. We call them telephone poles, but they work as perches for red-tailed hawks. And you cannot go really anywhere in this country without seeing red-tailed hawks. And it is just fantastic that that is the case. This shot is from our front yard in the fall. We get a red-tailed hawk, get a couple of them. We don't get them that often. I see them probably 6 or 8 times a year, but they sure are beautiful, and I absolutely love having them. Another bird that is benefited by people is the peregrine falcon. Now, we nearly killed the peregrine falcon with DDT, and we almost wiped it out, but we didn't. We banned DDT, and then peregrine falcons, like with the bald eagle, came back in numbers. And now you can find peregrine falcons in every major city in the country without exception. And in many places now, they're known as the urban falcon. And a lot of cities, both public and private efforts, are building nesting boxes for peregrine falcons to attract them in for a couple of reasons. Number one is they attract tourists. Birders like to go see peregrine falcons hanging out under the bridges coming into Manhattan, or church spires in Seattle, or whatever it might be. And people will say, well, why do peregrines like cities? 2 reasons. They are cliff nesters. And the sheerer the cliff, the happier the falcon. And what do we have in large cities? Skyscrapers, which apparently to a peregrine falcon either look like or easily double for a cliff. And so they build their nests on these skyscrapers, and now we're building nesting box for them. The second reason for that is pigeons. Almost every major town in the country has pigeons. Peregrine falcons love to eat pigeons, so it's easy pickings for the peregrines. This shot is from Torrey Pines, just outside of San Diego, California. They have a cliff there right on the beach. You can see it blurred in the background. That cliff is about 50 feet away from the water's edge. So I'm standing on the beach as I take this picture. The cliff itself is not big. It's about 150 feet tall, maybe a half mile long, 3/4 of a mile long. And there are peregrine falcons that nest on either side, the north and the south side of that cliff every year. And they have healthy, they fledge every year, they do well. In the wild, there's no way peregrine falcons would live that close to each other. They just don't do it. But here, there is so much food, so many shorebirds. that they're happy. There's not a territorial battle between the birds. They just have plenty to eat. They raise their babies. They do it every year, have for a number of years. So it's a great thing. The other bird that's made the amazing comeback is the bald eagle, which as of last year is now the official bird of the United States of America. And although a lot of people thought it had been forever, but it hadn't been, now it is. And like the peregrine, it was nearly wiped out by DDT, but when DDT was banned, they made a strong comeback. This shot is from the Conowinga Dam, which is about 45 minutes northeast of Baltimore. It is on the Susquehanna River. And every fall, the shad run through the dam there, the Conowinga Dam. And because nobody cares about the shad, there's not stairs or anything built like there are for salmon out on the western part of the country. So a large number of the shad, as they go through the dam, are either killed or knocked unconscious. And the bald eagles, which, as you know, are surface hunters, hang around in the hundreds in a small concentrated area around this dam and are picking off these shad as they land. Here's a couple of juveniles fighting. And what's really cool is, as you can imagine, the dam is secured for 11 months out of the year against whatever we secure things against. But while the shad are running and the bald eagles are there, they have opened up an area of the dam and you can actually walk along a sidewalk. There's about a 3-foot chain link fence and you can set up and photograph or bird watch or just hang out for the day. I've been there multiple times on multiple days. Get there at dawn, stay till dusk. You can photograph these birds all day long. If you are a photographer already, it is a spectacular place to go and get whatever pictures you want, an unlimited number of pictures. If you're not, but you're a photographer in training, it is equally significant because you can take pictures all day long. You can practice. You can change your settings and your angles and your approach, and you really develop your skills because you're not just getting, the picture you're looking at here. In most cases, that would be a one-time shot. But if you're on the Conowinga for a day, you might get that same shot 150 times. It is just gorgeous. Osprey. Now, this is another one where you can see a lot of osprey at one time. This is Sebastian Inlet in Florida. It's about 45 minutes north of Vero Beach. And same thing, in the fall, the mullet, and that's a mullet you can see in this picture. The mullet run, and the ospreys gather by the dozens, not the hundreds like the eagles, but by the dozens. And they fish all day long. So once again, you can get a ton of pictures of osprey hunting, diving, pulling out of the water, whatever it is you want to shoot, you get to shoot. I will argue that osprey may be the coolest of all the raptors, and I'll give you a couple of reasons why I think that is. Number one, this picture is actually from my backyard. This guy wasn't very happy with me. I was staring at him as he was eating. Number one, they are sushi eaters, as am I. Sushi is my favorite food, and the ospreys, so I just like that. So I always mention that as the first fact. The second one, they are the only bird in the world that when they migrate, they carry a lunch with them. So like most birds that are getting ready to migrate, they try to double their body weight. Their organs will shrink or even disappear. And in some birds, the organs can disappear and then will regrow or regenerate when they come back. And they pack on all this body weight. And ospreys do that very same thing. However, the last thing an osprey does before it begins a flight, let's say 650 miles from Florida across the Gulf of Mexico into Central America, last thing they do is grab a fish. You've seen them do it before. They flip it head forward. They always flip the fish head forward. They give that little dog shake after about 20 feet. They take to the sky, and along their flight, they eat that fish that they've captured, which is kind of cool. They are the only migratory bird that skips the first return season. So I'm not sure what it is in Ohio, but here, for example, our osprey left the lake about 2 months ago. They usually leave the first week of September. They get here in March, leave the first week of September, and then they head on down wherever they're going, to Mexico or Central America, or some of them even South America. So they do that, they fledge, they leave, off they go. But 6 months later, when the adults and the other juveniles are flying home, those first year birds do not. They stay. They skip a return season. And then 12 months later, they go right back into the cycle. They come back, and they'll come back they'll come back to our same lake. They go back to their same spots wherever they were. Ornithologists have not figured out yet why they do that, but they do. And it is one of those things that is just cool and worth studying, and somebody will figure it out at some point. But for right now, all we know is when they make their first trip south, they skip the first return trip north. And the last fact is they are the only diving raptor. So bald eagles, like I mentioned, are surface hunters. Osprey can dive up to 3 feet deep. And the reason they can do that is they're the only raptor whose eyes adjust for refraction. So when an osprey's in a 70-mile-an-hour stoop from 100 feet up, because it sees a fish 2.5 feet underwater, it knows exactly where that is because its eyes have made the calculation for refraction. I just think that's amazing and really, really cool. All right, we should be advancing. There we go. Another osprey. This one's also at Sebastian Inlet. This is a great gray owl. This is in Yellowstone National Park. Minus 25 degrees, snowing. And for those of you that are photographers, you know that in those kind of temperatures, you cannot have the heater on and the windows up in your car. Or when you do, when you open the car door, your camera's going to fog up and you're going to ruin whatever shot you're trying to get. So on this particular day, it was minus 25 degrees. I had the windows down, no heater on. I'm bundled up as if I'm outside, which essentially I was. 1.5 inches of snow on the floorboards, and a ranger pulls me over. Now I'm in Yellowstone in the Lamar Valley in January, and the ranger pulls me over and he says, "Can I ask what you're doing here?" And I told him, I said, "Yeah, I'm looking for megafauna. I love looking for the bison and the wolves and the coyotes and stuff." And I said, "I'm looking for raptors." And he explained to me that I was the only guest in the park that day, which is remarkable when you consider that, say, in July, they get 17,000 cars a day coming through. But I was the only one there that particular day, at least that part of the morning. And he said, "Hey, I can get you on a great gray owl if you want." So I followed him for about a half an hour along the only road that's open in the winter in Yellowstone. And he put me on this great gray owl. I got to watch it for 2 hours. I got to watch it dive twice. If you haven't seen that, it's amazing. But great gray owl, as you can see in this picture, the dish on its face, they can actually hear small mammals under up to 2 feet of snow. They can hear a mouse breathing 2 feet under the snow. So I got to watch it dive twice, once successfully and pulled a mouse out from under the snow, and once it wasn't as successful. But it was truly a remarkable thing to see. And if you're interested in winter owls, probably the best place in the country to see them is Sax-Zim Bog up in Minnesota. And on a great day, but it's still possible, you can see 7 different owls in a single day in Sax-Zim Bog. Great gray, boreal, snowy, northern hawk, northern saw-whet, barred, and great horned. It is an amazing place. There's a couple of great horns. It's an amazing place to see owls, and I love going up there. People asked if I chased rarities. I don't chase non-raptor rarities, but I do chase raptor rarities. I love doing it, and I do. This is a roadside hawk, pretty common bird, and again in Central America and southern Mexico, but not so much in Texas. It hadn't been seen there in a few years, and I went down and got it. And I got a Bat Falcon the same way, made a trip down to Texas on New Year's Eve and got a Bat Falcon. And for me, it's fun. I like the birds that show up and aren't expected, and you get a chance to go down and see them. It's a pretty cool deal. You guys obviously get a lot of rarities and vagrants coming through during migration where you are, and Texas gets a bunch too, but they get a lot of the raptors, which is great. Now, the next picture I'm going to show you is by far the worst picture that I've ever been willing to share with anybody, and you will see right away it's a terrible picture, but I hope you think that it's worth it. It's a Steller seagull. If you remember, we had a Steller seagull come through here about 3 years ago. Came across to Alaska for whatever reason, went down to Texas, then over to Washington, D.C., and then up to Maine. And that's where it spent some time in Maine. And you could go to a place called the Arrowsick Bridge, and that's where you would spot this bird. It came 2 winters in a row. It hasn't been here in the last 2 winters. It's been seen in Newfoundland, Canada, but not in the U.S. But the 2 winters that it was here, you would go to the Arrowsick Bridge. And the reason the picture is so terrible is this bird is fully 1 mile away from the bridge. That's how far upriver it is. And to give you an idea, if you're not familiar with this bird, it's a Russian or a Japanese bird. It's one of the 3 biggest raptors in the world. It is absolutely massive. And the bird that it's sitting on that it caught and was eating is a Canada goose. So imagine how big you have to be to take a Canada goose out of the air, which is what this bird did. And the small bird in front of it that's watching it, that's a full-grown bald eagle. A bald eagle maxes out at about 13 pounds. A Stellers can hit about 22 or 23 pounds, so it's more than 50% larger. They are huge. You can see even in this bad picture how awesome the beak is. It's just an amazing bird to see. So if you get a chance to go to Newfoundland next winter, or if the bird is kind enough to come back down to Maine, that's a trip well worth making if you're a Raptor fan. Absolutely spectacular. Northern hawk owl, this was the 53rd out of my 53. I was having trouble finding it, and I had just been up in Montana and had gotten a Bat Falcon, which was number 52. It was winter and it was cold. I'd been home about 3 days, and I got a call that a northern hawk owl had been spotted in Wise River, Montana. Now, it was an odd thing. I mentioned that people help, and somebody was kind enough to call and tell me, but they wouldn't tell me exactly where the bird was. They felt that, for whatever reason, they didn't. They just told me it had been seen in Wise River. And so I jumped on a plane and went up there. Now, you probably know that an eBird, for example, a lot of the raptors are ghosted in eBird. They don't show you exactly where they're found, and that's because people come in and poach these birds, and northern hawk owls are among those. So I thought it might be difficult to find. So I flew in, drove about 3 hours to get to Wise River. I'm pulling in on a Monday afternoon. I had allowed 4 days to find the bird. It was the last bird, and I was getting desperate to find it. And as I pulled up on Monday afternoon, just before I pulled into town, and by the way, if you have not been to Wise River, Montana, it's going to have to get a stoplight in order to be a one stoplight town. It is a tiny little place. But I was just on the outskirts, and there was a dirt road to my left. I thought, well, I'll just take this dirt road. I don't need to check in yet to the little Airbnb that I rented. And so I went up this road about a half mile, 3/4 of a mile, and up on the right-hand side, 15-foot wide dirt road, I saw 2 cars pulled over, and I thought, it cannot possibly be this easy. And yet it was. Pulled up behind these 2 cars, and before I even got out of the car, there were 3 people standing there, 2 from one car, 1 from the other. They just pointed up to this unused telephone pole across the dirt road, and sitting on top of it was this northern hawk owl. It was getting close to, it was late afternoon. Got to stay there about 2 hours. It was darn cold. It went and hunted a couple of times. That's where I got this shot. And it was really, really a spectacular time. Tuesday morning, I got up and I wanted to go find the bird again. So I figured the best place to start was where I had been the evening before. I went back. I got there right at sunrise. Nobody else was there except for the bird. The bird was sitting on top of that same pole. Sun came up and we stood there together for an hour and a half, almost 2 hours. I was leaning against the back bumper of the car, just leaning against it, watching, not even taking pictures, just watching this bird. The bird didn't go anywhere. It didn't hunt. It didn't leave the pole. It was just there. It was just watching me. And all of a sudden, this bird drops down from the pole like a bomb, just heading straight to the dirt road. And about 1.5 feet off the road, it made this 90-degree turn and came straight at me. And it came so close that with its left leg, with its left wing, it brushed my left leg. Now, obviously the bird knew I was there. I'd been there for over an hour and a half. I'm 6 foot, well over 200 pounds. The bird knew I was there. It did not have to come anywhere near me, and yet it chose to. I've run this by a lot of famous birders and ornithologists. Nobody has come up with a scientific reason for why the bird would have done this. So I have chosen to take it as a spiritual moment, and it is the highlight of my 17 months. The bird then took and flew off across the prairie, and I looked for the next 2.5 days, never saw it again, ran into other people looking for it. They never saw it. And I believe the bird said goodbye and maybe thanked me for being quiet and relaxed around it. But it was the single most magical moment of my entire trip, which is probably why I put that bird on the cover of the book. That is another shot I had taken from the day before. It is a magnificent looking animal. And I just thought this is the perfect bird to put on the front of this book. And it was amazing. Now, the book is available on Amazon if you're interested. It is overpriced. It is $60. And if you are curious about this at all, of that $60, I get 2 cents. Not kind of just being funny about it. Literally, I get 2 cents, and Amazon gets $59.98. That's how it works. That's the cheapest they'll let me sell it for. I think it's a great book because it shares stories of terrific people and beautiful birds. But I certainly understand people who don't want to spend $60 to buy it. I will tell you also, I have another book coming out called Why We Love Birds, not till spring of 27, where I've interviewed 52 of the greatest birders in the country. Scott Weidensaul, who you guys are discussing his book coming up soon, and Pete Dunn and Greg Miller and Ken Kaufman and Debbie Shearwater and Cy Montgomery. I was blessed with having all these people be a part of that book, and I'm really thrilled. I have a podcast called Naturally Scott. I do it twice a week. This is the one favor I will ask, if I may. I hope nobody minds, but it's my 30-second pitch. If you happen to go look at this podcast and you do it on YouTube, do me a favor and hit subscribe. Doesn't cost anything, doesn't take any time. But the more people that subscribe, the more people YouTube pushes it out to, and our story gets out to more and more people, which I think is exciting. And it allows me to bring in more guests as well. So that's a neat deal. As far as photography goes, I have 2 rules. The only things that I change on my photographs are I will crop, and sometimes I will make color adjustments. But if there's something in the picture that shouldn't be there, I don't take it out. And if there's something I wish was there, I don't add it in. So when you look at this picture, that is the ferruginous hawk. This is taken outside of Pinnacles National Park, California. That is the color of the sky behind it. That post going across was there. The yellow sign that you're looking at was there. The only thing that I did modify is that yellow sign used to say high voltage, and I changed it to thank you, to remind me to make sure to say thank you to each of you for inviting me here tonight and into your homes and into your club and allowing me to share this story. And now I would be thrilled to answer any and all questions.
Wow, wow, wow. That is amazing, amazing, amazing. Yeah, go if somebody's on, they can turn their audio on and ask a question. I also have a couple questions in the chat. Maybe we want to unshare so that we can see everybody. Unshare
Well,
the
while
screen.
you're doing that, I will let you know that about 2 weeks ago, Scott Weidensaul was my guest on the podcast. And the podcasts normally run an hour, but Scott and I are both chatterboxes, so it ran 3 hours. So we split it up into 2 90-minute podcasts. And in one of those, he does discuss Return to Wild America and his passion for Peterson and Fisher's book, Wild America. So if anybody wants to cheat and get ready for book club, you could get some notes there.
Maybe you can back up to that slide with the with the information on your podcasts. So just in case people didn't jot things down or want to take a picture of it.
I think I can do that. There we go.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for asking me to do that. And actually, it was Ohio's Greg Miller was the very first guest I had on the podcast, which was extremely generous of Greg to do. And I've just been thrilled with the birders that I have. Ken Kaufman's coming up. Debbie Shearwater's coming up. I tell my wife all the time that the thrill for me is getting to meet all these people, either in the book or the podcast or both. So I'm honored.
Excellent. One question I see in the chat, what time of the year were you in Texas seeing the white-tailed hawk and the ferruginous pygmy owl?
Those were both from March. So March, I don't know the exact date, but March is when King Ranch opens their touring. That's when those birds kind of become available. You don't see them a lot in the winter, they leave, but they're back by March. And so that's their annual opening. And I managed to book and go on the first day that they were open that year in March. So and got to see both of them on the same day. A lot of the white of the hawk, but only, well, kind of 2.5 of the ferruginous.
Nice. Yeah, several people I know from our chapter and maybe Kirtland Bird Club and some other folks have been up to Sax-Zim Bog and looking for the great gray and some of the other owls up there. So I'm hoping they had good luck. I know sometimes they've had to go a couple years
Yep.
because one year they're not there and the next year they are and that
Yeah,
kind of
you can
stuff.
have an eruption year where they're all over. This was a good year for great grays. I had other trips, so I wasn't able to go, unfortunately, but the people I know that did said it was just amazing. And then you're right, there are dry years where you go and you maybe spend a week and you get a couple of great horns. So, of course, if we wanted this to be a guaranteed activity, we just go to the zoo.
Oh, speaking of zoo, you saw the Eurasian Eagle Owl?
Yes,
Oh, what did they name it? Shoot,
Flacco.
Flacco, that's right, yeah.
Flacco. As a matter of fact, one of the gentlemen who is both in my book and a guest on the podcast is David Gessner, and he wrote a book called The Book of Flacco. And it's a pretty fascinating story, I think, and it was an amazing bird to see. It was unfortunate when it got killed, but it was truly a great bird to see. And, to me, that's kind of a marginal bird. I mean, it's a fantastic bird, but it's a marginal call. Is that really a wild bird? Is it still a captive bird? I don't know. All I know is I wanted to go see it while it was living free, and I was able to do that. So me and 28 million other birders that went to Central Park to see the bird. It wasn't terribly challenging to find. You just looked for the football stadium sized crowd with cameras pointed up, and you would find the bird. So it did not take a skilled birder to track it down. Made it no less beautiful, by the way, just because it was easy.
Nice. All righty. Well, I know our time is running short. I just want to let you know that we've got a couple in the Cleveland, well, actually they live in Lorraine, Chad and Chris Saladin, who love peregrine falcons.
Oh,
And their photos are wonderful. Most of the falcons, of course, are nesting on bridges, on buildings, and they keep track of them and they name them, but their photography is just mind
and they're
blowing.
so beautiful. Tomorrow, for my podcast, I'm interviewing Chris Parrish, who is the president of the Peregrine Fund.
Oh,
And since you guys have a book club, I will recommend a book to a guest that I had on last week. Her name is Sophie Osborne, and her book is something Feather Trails. Feather
okay.
Trails is the name of her book. And she studied peregrine falcons for a year, Hawaiian crows for a year, and California condors for a year. And she wrote a book about those experiences. So if you're looking for another book to add to future book club discussions, Sophie Osborne's Feather Trails is one I would strongly recommend.
Oh, thank you.
And the odds are you could have Sophie in as a guest as well.
Oh, that would be fun.
Yeah, if you want to send me a note later, I'll put you in contact. But she is a charming and outgoing and brilliant woman and very
Wonderful.
passionate.
Well, thank you so much for the presentation this evening. We had a wonderful crowd, and I know we loved not only your photos, but your stories and your trials and tribulations. We all know how it is when, oh, I'm going to go find this bird, only to hear somebody say, oh, it was here 2 minutes ago.
Oh yeah. I'd rather they didn't tell me.
Yeah.
I just don't tell me that. Tell me it left last night or 3 hours ago. Not did you see it on your way in, which is the painful part. But sincerely, thank you so much for having me. And I never take this for granted, especially on these Zoom calls where you've invited me into your home. It is an honor for me. My email is scott@naturallyscott.com. If anyone has any follow-up questions that come to them in the next couple of days, send me a note. I'm thrilled to answer them. Anything I can do to pay it forward, I love to do. I've just been gifted by so many people in the 5 years I've been doing this. I want to make sure that I pay my karma debt.
And you didn't name your book Travels with Scott, huh?
Well, it was one of the names we considered, but even though my wife will point out I have a massive ego, it's not quite that big. And I have to, in fairness to my wife, I do have the world's largest collection of Travels with Charlie. It's been at museums and libraries and
Oh,
whatnot.
wow.
But my wife always likes me to point out I probably have the world's only collection of Travels with Charlie. So maybe it's not that big of a deal. But nonetheless, I do.
Excellent. Well,
You
you
guys
have a
have a
good,
great night.
you too.
Thanks for signing up for the podcast if you do. And don't hesitate to send me a note if you have any questions.
All righty. Thank you so very much. Appreciated.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye-bye.